Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most complex, most fascinating landscapes in all of literature, the private thoughts of Franz Kafka, pulled straight from his Blue Octavo Notebooks.
Kafka kicks off his notebooks with this simple but wow, incredibly profound idea. And it's not just a nice phrase, it's basically the key that unlocks his entire internal world. A world, you'll see, that's filled with conflict, confusion, and some really brilliant, unsettling insights.
So, what did his room look like? I mean, really. Let's explore the fragmented, surreal, and deeply personal thoughts he jotted down between 1917 and 1919. This is going to be a journey into a mind that is truly unlike any other.
Okay, so first things first, Kafka's inner world was not some peaceful sanctuary. Not at all. It was a place of intense, constant conflict. For him, the very act of being human was basically an endless internal struggle.
Yeah, he didn't see the self as this one, unified, coherent thing. Forget that. For him, it was fractured, splintered, and always at war with itself. And he illustrates this with this really bizarre and unforgettable little story about his own two hands.
I mean, this just perfectly nails that feeling of self-alienation, right? Kafka makes himself a helpless spectator, a referee, forced to watch his own internal battles, totally powerless to stop them. It's this terrifying vision of being disconnected from your own body, from your own self.
And this internal chaos, it doesn't just stay locked up inside. Kafka projects it out onto the external world, showing how reality itself can become just as illogical and just as confusing as his own inner state. So get this. He tells this little story he calls a common confusion, which is anything about common. It completely breaks down the laws of time and space. A trip that should be short suddenly takes 10 hours. Then the return trip is instantaneous. A simple goal, meeting a client, becomes this absurd chain of missed connections until the whole thing just falls apart. Logic is totally collapsed.
So you see, in this Kafkian universe, the simplest tasks become these impossible missions. And this isn't just about having a bad day. It's a reflection of a deep, fundamental disorientation with the world itself.
But Kafka doesn't stop there. He takes this whole deconstruction of reality even further. He turns to ancient myths, but not to find answers or some kind of moral lesson. No, he uses them to question the very idea of truth itself.
We all know the classic story of Odysseus and the sirens, right? The hero, he plugs his crew's ears with wax, ties himself to the mast so he can hear their deadly, irresistible song and survive. It's the ultimate tale of cleverness beating temptation. But Kafka, being Kafka, looks at this and asks a question that just flips the whole thing on its head. He reimagines the myth with this incredible twist that makes you question everything you thought you knew about that story.
And wow, this brilliantly illustrates a core Kafkan idea, that the absence of a threat can be way more terrifying than the threat itself. In Kafka's telling, Odysseus sails past in total silence, thinking he's won, when actually, they never even sang. His great victory becomes hollow, maybe just the story he tells himself.
And he pulls the exact same move with the legend of Prometheus. Instead of one clear, heroic story, Kafka gives us 4 conflicting versions, completely shattering the idea that there's any single stable truth to the myth. So by offering all these contradictory accounts, Kafka is basically suggesting that reality isn't some fixed point we can all agree on. It's a messy collection of shifting, unreliable stories that might all be true and false at the exact same time.
So where does all this lead us? Well, it brings us to the final part of Kafka's notebooks, a space that isn't filled with clear stories or easy answers, but with these powerful, paradoxical one-liners that just stick with you long after you read them.
Take this one. With just 3 words, Kafka shows how much he distrusts easy explanations of our inner world. For him, trying to neatly label and define the human mind was just lazy. It was a rush to judgment, a failure to sit with how complex and messy it all really is. And then there's this, which totally inverts our whole understanding of effort and enlightenment. He's suggesting that truth isn't something you can just hunt down. It might only show up when you finally stop striving, when you just let go.
Ultimately, after wading through all this confusion, paradox, and internal war, Kafka seems to boil existence down to just 2 fundamental things. Only 2.
But here's the ultimate Kafka irony, right?
His entire body of work is a masterclass in showing how utterly impossible it can be to tell them apart. We're just left hanging between these two poles, which leaves us with one final, haunting question.
It's a question Kafka seems to be asking himself, a cry from one part of his fractured self to another. But it's also a question that echoes for every single one of us who enters his labyrinth. It's a question that sticks with you long, long after you close the book.